September 20th. Elevator subcode official, to be taken. None. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes. The floor is open to the public on any matter.
Okay, if you do come up, please state your name and address. You'll be given 5 minutes.
Kandalski, 21 Winfield Drive. I have two questions on resolutions that I see, one in the non-consent agenda and the other in the consent agenda. So if you want, I'll read all my questions on both and then
Sure.
you can answer. So the first is on Resolution 2019-191, resolution of intent to appropriate funds or bonds for affordable housing in the event of a funding shortfall. So my questions are, what are these funds for? How much risk is involved with appropriating these funds or bonds in the event of a funding shortfall? What is our maximum exposure, and is there a mechanism for recouping this money? The second has to do with resolution on the consent agenda. There's several that provide for the insertion of any special item of revenue in the budget of any county or municipality. What's behind these resolutions? What problem or issue are they solving? Can this revenue be a negative? In other words, could this result in losses? So those are my questions on the resolutions.
I can answer them. I can answer the one on the revenue side. I'm not able to answer the other one on the consent agenda. What that is grants. And as we get grants, they need to be put into the budget. So what they call a special item of revenue. It was not anticipated when we passed the budget. So as we get grants, you'll see things like this. That adds it to the budget. It's a good thing.
Okay. Just checking.
So I can answer a portion of your question on Resolution 2019-191, but I think I'm going to have to ask Mr. Snikis and Ms. London to come up to the microphone. The resolution, in short, provides that in the event of a shortfall in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the municipality would have to either appropriate or bond money in order to undertake projects that were authorized by the trust fund.
This is one of the standard resolutions that are required as part of our fair share housing compliance documents. It is to be put into place in the event your trust fund doesn't have funds to deal with the programs as part of your spending plan. You have a very healthy spending plan, but it is a requirement that this be like an insurance policy, so to speak, in the event any of your programs, your housing programs, don't have funding. As we talked before, your market to affordable, if your community group homes, things that now are covered under your trust fund plan, it's like an insurance policy. And it's one of the requirements that we are required to implement. So it's pretty standard. I believe every municipality who has a settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing, this is one of the various ordinances and resolutions that are required.
Thank you.
So what is our exposure, and how much could we lose, and is there any way to ever recoup it?
Well, the fund, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, is replenished with affordable housing developer fees that are collected periodically in connection with both inclusionary and non-inclusionary projects. I don't know the current balance of the trust fund right now, but I think, Ed, you may.
Also, what you'll see in the spending plan is we've addressed and we've covered every expense that we are expecting. So the exposure at this point is very little, because we have to if we have certain programs, we have to show where the money is coming from. So we've done that in the spending plan. As Jim mentioned, the money coming in, we're anticipating interest on the money that's currently there and use of the current funds. That's how we have allocated and shown use of the funds. So right now, we're balanced, and that's into 2025.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that. I think Leslie stated it very well. What's unique in your plan is that we don't have any 100% affordable housing developments where there's a potential for additional revenue necessary in order to cover the costs for those developments. It's all for the market to affordable, the accessory apartment ordinance, things of that nature, and we had to show a balance between the trust fund and the overall expenditures or programs that we have in place in order to balance that. What this is really belt and suspenders to make sure, just in case there's something that comes up, that there's the resolution of intent to bond. We're not bonding yet, but the intent to do so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Seeing no one else?
Kevin Brancato, 14 Celtic Way. I have a couple of things. One, I have a whole bunch of questions on the reservoir project, starting with the short notice that the residents had about their presentation tonight. I didn't find out about this meeting until I read it in the newspaper this morning. On to my questions. I heard nothing about bus parking for groups. I saw parking areas that had 12 or 15 parking spots in it, but what do you do if you get a group from a school and stuff like that come in there? Fences along the residential areas. My property, just so you know, happens to back up to the reservoir, as the mayor is very familiar with. We had 2 incidents with trees falling down due to lack of maintenance, actually, of culling the trees. And it took the mayor to get Jersey City to come up and fix the fence. I have concerns about fire. Right now, we're in a drought period. There are no campgrounds or fires allowed in campgrounds and stuff like that. What about smokers? Somebody starts a fire back there in a drought area, what happens? Who's going to take care of the forest? And that's a pretty big forest. Garbage concerns, I saw Nick Komiak wrote that this morning. Bathrooms, it's an 8-mile walking area. Now, we just had the pooperintendent thing, and I'm concerned about people relieving themselves in the middle of the reservoir, in my backyard. Also, controls. Are there any controls on visitors? Or is it just there's a stanchion in the middle of the roadway that people can come and walk through and enter any time they want to? Do we know who's in there, what they're doing, why, what they're doing? Walking? We just don't have any controls that I see. I have a second, off of that subject, I have an Airbnb next door to me. I don't object to Airbnbs, but I think we need to control them. They're mini hotels. The Airbnb next to me has got 6 residential units or 6 rooms that he rents out in this hotel, one of which is an illegal apartment in his basement. We have nothing or no ordinance, no way to go and inspect these things. They don't have to have fire controls, they don't have to have sprinklers. I think it's something that you need to consider when you talk about this ordinance regulating the Airbnbs and the hotels. My last subject is, I don't know the last time anybody has tried to find a video of a council meeting on the website. I can't. The August of 2018 is the last one I can find on the website. Thank God for Frank Cahill, because he's the only place I get to see council meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to answer some of those questions he had?
Yes, it was relatively short notice. We will have another meeting October 21st in Boonton, if you do wish to attend that meeting with more notice. But yes, it was short notice.
If I could just, I'm sorry to interrupt you guys, I apologize, I just need to say something. Mr. Pinto has emailed me a copy of the presentation, so I just want to make it known to the public. If you'd like a copy of that PowerPoint, you can just stop by the clerk's office and we can get that to you. Because I just thought of that now, and I apologize.
Right. And the entire plan is on the Jersey City Environmental Commission website as well, so you can read the report itself. This was just to really inform the public about what it contains, so that you didn't have to read the whole thing. As to bus parking for groups, yes, there would, if there was a group, it would be in one of the designated parking areas. Likely, the location would be on Parsippany Boulevard. That would be the largest. There is no specific parking spots for buses. It's really not anticipated that would be the use around this reservoir. Other reservoirs do have a lot of bus activity because of the variety of activities that are permitted, the fishing, the boating. There's going to be no swimming, there's going to be no boating. Basically, there's not even going to be bicycle riding. It's going to be walkers and runners. So we feel that it's not going to attract large crowds the way other reservoirs might attract larger crowds. The fences, yes, I know that is an ongoing issue, and we're hoping that we, with this project, can develop a better working relationship with Jersey City over those. You certainly are not the only place where there are fence issues around the perimeter of the reservoir. There's, yeah, that's coming to light in Jersey City the more this project is brought out. So I think you'll see improvements in the future. I can't guarantee that, and it's really outside the scope of our project. The fire concerns, all I can say is that there will be more eyes on the property than there are now. The eyes that are on the property now are trespassers, and the police are not able to access the property to respond. They will have that access once the trail is opened up. Garbage concerns, I apologize, I didn't address that. In each of the parking areas, there would be a bathroom facility, likely a porta-john type facility, and as well as garbage and recycling facilities there. The Park Commission will be in charge of all maintenance along, for the trail and in the parking areas. So the Park Commission has a very good reputation of taking care of their parks. And I think controls of access, there will be some enhancement to cameras and security. Jersey City is going through that right now. Outside the scope of our trail project, they are doing some security enhancements and improved cameras. The Jersey City MUA in particular and OEM will basically be dictating to us what they want to see out there. So there will be additional cameras and response, as well as security phones for users in case there's an emergency along the trail. Cameras would likely be monitored by both Jersey City MUA and OEM and the Morris County Park Commission. But I can't say for certain exactly how that will work out. We would have to work with the local security to have that figured out. Okay.
That being said, I think we need to look a little bit deeper into this proposal and find out the answers to some of these questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
What question was not answered?
Not that the questions weren't answered, Mayor. There's a lot of openings here, a lot of, I don't know, it's not in my control. I want to know about the fence in my backyard.
Okay.
I mean, I had to call you to get them to fix fence. And
I had to call the mayor in Jersey City. That was not easy to do.
Two incidents within 18 months. One of them took my neighbor's pool out.
Right.
And one of them took the fence out in the corner there. And, you know, I mean, why should you have to call Mayor Fulop to get the fence fixed?
Agreed.
A simple fix.
There has to be a better way with dealing with the
And I
management
think
of the
we need
reservoir.
to know the answers to those questions before we just go ahead and agree to do
But
this.
I have noted about the bus parking and the bathrooms. I want to respond to one of your questions related to on unrelated matter, but here in the council chambers, when you were talking about the media as related to the township showing the council meetings. I agree with you.
Yes.
This system that we have here in this building that records here would have been amazing in 1998. It would have been state of the art. And it's still the same thing, and you know, mayors before me and myself included, just looking to save some taxpayer money and not go to cutting edge technology. And of course, when a system like this was put in, there wasn't the ability for a citizen journalist to record it and be able to put it up instantly digitally. The process that we have here First it's recorded over here, and then I believe the clerk then burns it into a disc. The disc is then hand-delivered to the public information officer. He then has to deliver it to the Board of Education, because we have a shared services agreement with Video on the Go, where they can digitize it, then put it online. There's just too many spots on it, and I apologize that the September ones aren't up yet, but that's in the process now.
Well, then what we need to
I mean,
do-
we are up to date till August, but
We need to
what-
change the statement that Ms. McCarthy reads at every meeting, because she says it's going to be posted up on the Parsippany.net, and it isn't.
Well, it will. It's just not as timely as I would like it to be. Okay, quite frankly,
You're-
I would like, and there is the capacity out there, but it's a matter of expense to have these live streamed
Then just
officially by the township.
Stop reading that you're going to put it onto Parsippany.net, that's all.
But we
Say
do-
you're going to put it on
No,
Parsippany.
but
Focus.
Kevin, we do put it on Parsippany.net. It takes longer than it does
Well, I
the
think you
media
better
to do
look
it,
at the
because
website.
the media has better tech than
Mayor,
we have here in the
With all due
township.
respect, I think you better look at the website, because there's not one of your meetings that's up on your website.
Okay, I will. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Thanks.
Can I just add something here, if I may? We had a kind of a ribbon cutting ceremony at the Boonton Reservoir about a year ago. And we took a type of a walking tour then from the dam over towards Route 46. And Suez walked with us and kind of gave us the tour and told us what they wanted to do. One of the things they were talking about was all of the fencing would be increased in height to something like 10 feet or something, where the deer can't jump over them, because they can certainly jump over an 8-foot fence with no effort at all, which may or may not happen. But the other thing was security. It's all going to be fenced in, and there's going to be the points of entry that you mentioned, you pointed to, and that's great. But at any point in time, will anybody be aware of how many people have passed through those points of entry that are still inside the reservoir someplace? Or are those just not gated and anybody can walk in any time?
There is the existing fencing around the entire facility. There will be controlled gates that will be constructed to allow the public in. At each of those, there will be basically like a traffic counter that will be at least monitoring the amount of people that are coming into it. It's not going to count in and out to know how many people are in the reservoir. That will really be done the way it is with any Park Commission trail facility that they have, and it's looking at the cars that are in the parking lot. And are there any remaining cars as it gets close to dusk? If there are, then they'll try to seek out anybody who might still be inside. If a pedestrian without a vehicle comes up to it, they could be inside when the gates are closed for the evening. So there is that potential for that to occur, just as there are in all of the other 30-plus Park Commission facilities. I mean, they operate some very rustic areas.
Could there be like a 15-minute warning whistle or something to say, get your tail out of there now?
I think you'd be getting a lot of calls from residents saying, what the heck is with that horn at
Oh, I know
dusk
one
every
resident
night?"
right there that'd be calling me.
That would really have to be up for the Park Commission. I mean, the rules for the facility will be posted at each trailhead, and they will be very specific, limited points of access to it. So there will be these controlled points.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nick Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. As far as the reservoir goes, I hope there was no pets would be allowed.
Correct.
All right, that's good. And it would be a good thing, because this is a problem in a lot of parks. We have park police. They're like parking lot police. They'll show up at the park. They very rarely ever patrol, foot patrol. And sometimes that's necessary, because rules are broken. And if the police were there and they happened to see some of this and they made an example out of some of these people, the word might get around, and the behavior within the park would improve. You know, alcohol, there is a no smoking ban in parks, but people still do it. People toss dog waste all over. Mr. Ira Kane was here, and I didn't understand the whole deal, but I remember when Mr. Inglesino was the town attorney, I would have to say that a couple of steep slope ordinances, variances that were given by the variance board, I would say that they had to rubber stamp that, and they had no choice in the matter. There was no democracy or debate or anything, and the two incidents, of course, are Waterview, the steep slope ordinance, and 700 Mountain Way, same thing. There was no controversy allowed. In my personal opinion, at the board, I tried to invoke Highlands Interactive Maps, which is a legitimate state agency, a scientific form of knowledge that you could present to any planning board. They shut me down because, number one, I didn't make the map, and number two, Parsippany's not participating in the Highlands Regional Master Plan at the time because Mr. John had taken us out. But still, the relevance of that scientific information was not allowed. So I would have to say that the planning board at that time they were just rubber stamping certain things, and there wasn't any controversy. And Lake Hiawatha, I have to say, he's right about that. That area of the town was never zoned right to begin with. You got the back of restaurants and a garbage can right next to somebody's backyard, the dumpster. That whole thing over there is messed up. There's all kinds of various lots and everything. So, but the idea of making it easier for people to have air conditioners and stuff, I don't see why you have to come in front of a board for something like that. That seems kind of ridiculous. And all right, I guess that's all I have to say tonight. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Council. John Von Aken, 43 Elliott Road. My concern coming here tonight was regarding the reservoir project. I'm actually a supporter of it, but one of the items that came to note today was the targeted hunting. And as somebody whose property comes very close, well, is on the property line, that specific note rose a moment of concern. So I would like to hear a little bit more about that if you could.
The Morris County Park Commission has a active hunting program in some of its parks. Certainly, they're not going to be hunting anywhere near a residential area. And in fact, the entire reservoir property is probably not suited for it. There needs to be some form of deer depredation and deer control that needs to be done. There isn't an exact plan as to what that would happen. The Park Commission would be the one to really speak to this point in particular. So yeah, right now there is not, and know that there certainly can't be any hunting within, I think, 400 or 500 feet of any residential structure, regardless of it being public property or not. So there won't be anybody shooting in your backyard. All right.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
My other point of concern, I'm a member of the planning board, and so when I did hear some of the notes from the Board of Adjustments, it rose one or two concerns. Certainly, I agree with a lot of the points that he made, and I should note that I'm not coming here as a representative of the planning board. But when you hear things about adding on to properties, reducing impervious space, removing side yard distances, those are concerns for various reasons. We talk about fire department access to property. We talk about returning the groundwater back to the ground sources and other things. So while I appreciate the representation that he made, and I'm sure that each individual applicant is unique, these ordinances are there for a reason, and they're important, and they shouldn't just be, suggested that, well, this person needs this in order for their property to be useful for them or to adjust to their future needs. We still need to hold in place the reason why these ordinances are there to begin with, and to make sure that they're not just one-off all the time, or even periodically. They have to be very strongly considered. I'm sure, gentlemen, does consider those things appropriately, but some of those things just sounded a little bit too handheld, and should be considered very seriously. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, see no one else come forward, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Okay, ordinances, Mr. Madden?
Okay, so at this point in time, we're going to go and this is an agenda meeting, so no ordinances will be introduced with the exception of these affordable housing ordinances. And in the interest of expedience and efficiency, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the title of every ordinance. And once I read all the titles along with the numbers, I will then make a motion for a public hearing. And any resident that would like can come up, state the number of the ordinance they'd like to speak about, and they would like the administration and council to address, and they will go ahead and do so, and then we will end the public hearing. But before I go ahead and do that, I will turn it over to Mr. Lott just to say a couple things.
I just want to impose upon the clerk and ask him that when he reads the title of the ordinance, that you also identify the proposed project location, as well as the lot and block number, which I have a copy of.
What you have here?
Yeah, I have them there.
Okay.
Right. That's just to give everybody fair opportunity to understand what ordinances are being considered.
Just making sure they all
If
go in
you
order.
want, we can tag team if you want.
No, it's okay. I can do it. No
Okay.
problem. I just want to make sure it's they're in order. Perfect. All right. So I will go ahead and begin. Ordinance number 2019:46. This ordinance, the location is Westmont Commons, Block 698, Lot 15.2. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new AHD-MU zone. Ordinance 2019-47, located in Matt Cali 1, Block 202, Lot 3.20. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new HD3A Affordable Housing District Zone. Ordinance 2019-48, location is Matt Cali 2, Block 202, Lot 3.20. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430, entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new AHD 3B Affordable Housing District Zone. Ordinance 2019-49, located in 750 Edwards Road, Block 766, Lots 6, 7, 8, and 9. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430, entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new AHD 4 Affordable District. Ordinance 2019-50, located on 887 Edwards Road, Block 767, Lot 36. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new AHD 5 Affordable Housing District Zone. Ordinance 2019:51, located in Wyker, Block 200, Lot 8. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new AHD 6 Affordable Housing District Zone. Ordinance 2019-52, located in SJP, Block 136, Lot 44 and 76. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new HD 7 Affordable Housing District Zone. Ordinance 2019-53, located in North Beverick 1, Block 607, Lot 1. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new OVL-1 Overlay Zone. Ordinance 2019-54, located on North Beverick Road 2, Block 497, Lots 6 and 7. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new OVL-2 Overlay Zone. Ordinance 2019:55, located in Lenadex, Block 392, Lots 1 and 2. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new OVL-2 3 overlay zone. Ordinance 2019-56, located in Gibraltar, Block 15.12, Lot 1. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new OVL-4 overlay zone. Ordinance 2019:57, located in Arlington Plaza, Block 698, Lot 15.2. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new OVL-5 overlay zone. Ordinance 2019-58, located in GSK, Block 181, Lot 19. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new OVL 6 overlay zone. Ordinance 2019-59, located in Development Fee Amendment, exists and required changes. Okay, an ordinance implementing the township's third-round housing plan element and fair share plan consistent with the terms of the settlement agreement reached between the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills and the Fair Share Housing Center in accordance with the New Jersey Fair Housing Act and relevant regulations and policies adopted by the New Jersey Council on Affordable Housing. Ordinance 2019-60, located on affordable housing ordinance, required new section. Okay, so these are, I don't need to give locations for these?
No.
Okay. An ordinance implementing the township's third-round housing plan element and fair share plan consistent with the terms of a settlement agreement reached between the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills and the Fair Share Housing Center in accordance with the New Jersey Fair Housing Act and the relevant regulations and policies adopted by the New Jersey Council on Affordable Housing. Ordinance 2019-61. An ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a new AHD-MU zone. Ordinance 2019-62. An ordinance implementing the township's third-round plan element and fair share plan consistent with the terms of a settlement agreement reached between the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills and the Fair Share Housing Center in accordance with the New Jersey Fair Share Housing Act and relevant regulations and policies adopted by the New Jersey Council on Affordable Housing. Ordinance 2019-63, an ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish mandatory affordable housing set-aside requirements. The notices for the... Go ahead.
So could you start over? Sorry.
What was that middle one?
Before you move into the rest of it, Clerk, I have 3 technical amendments that were recommended by Special Counsel and the Township's Affordable Housing Planner. Amendment to Ordinance 2019-58 makes the definition consistent with the COA regulation. I can read the pertinent part of the amendment. Under the defined term, age-restricted housing shall comply with NJSA 5:97-1.4 age-restricted housing. Age-restricted shall include the head of household with a minimum age of 55 years of age for residents, subject to compliance with federal law. No more than one residential unit may be occupied by employees of the owner or the operating entity who are employees or superintendents for the age-restricted project. In my opinion, that is a de minimis change to the ordinance that does not require renotice. We have a technical amendment with respect to ordinance number 2019-61. It's a correction with respect to the title. A portion of the original title was left out of the ordinance as introduced. The correct title shall read, an ordinance to amend Chapter 430 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish, and this is the new part, a new affordable accessory apartment provision. And the final amendment is with respect to ordinance 2019-63, and we insert the word 20 in paragraph B2 next to the numerical designation. Again, all of those technical amendments, in my view, are de minimis changes to the ordinance that do not require renotice. Clerk, you're free to proceed.
Thank you, Township Attorney. Notices for the above ordinances were published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on September 11, 2019. The ordinances were introduced at the September 3, 2019 agenda. Motion to accept the ordinances 2019:46 to 2019:63 be heard in their second and final readings by title only by...
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Public hearing 2019:46 through 2019:63. I'd like the motion to open up the public hearing for ordinances 2019-46 through 2019-63.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
The floor is open for the public to comment on any one of the above-mentioned ordinances.
Please state your name and address. You'll be given 3 minutes.
And before you comment, please give the ordinance number that you'd like to speak about, or the entire ordinances in full, whatever you'd like.
Ken Dolsky, 21 Winfield Drive. I want to talk about ordinance 2019-57. I want to go on record as saying I oppose the passage of this ordinance to establish a new OVL5 overlay zone in general, but if passed, I would like to see the following changes. 1, the distance between the resident property lines and the new housing units should be 250 to 300 feet. Specified protection of the existing wooded buffer areas, even if they are protected by wetland encumbrances. 3, specific language requiring that the current retail space along the northern side of the plaza be kept for retail and not allowed to be used for residential purposes. And 4, a requirement to retain and maintain the existing fence along the back and sides of the plaza that would keep people from trespassing on private property. Thank you.
Thank you.
And could we hear from the township planner on that?
Nick, if you want, you can come up first, and then I think Ed can address everybody all at once.
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we have Ed first, all right?
Good evening, everybody. Ed Snikas from the firm of Burgess Associates, housing planner, to help to prepare the ordinances. The distances to residential that was mentioned, we currently have a distance requirement of 150 feet if it's a 3-story building and 200 feet if it's a 4-story building. The distances of 250 and 300 would be excessive. Your heights of the buildings are approximately 40, 48 feet. So therefore, those distances would be substantial. The existing buildings are about 150 feet away from common property lines. So it was only reasonable, and we have to be reasonable in our standards because there are specific requirements in the COA regulations that talk about the reasonableness of the ordinance standards. So we can't do something excessive as far as the standards are concerned. But I understand the concerns of the neighbor. Also specify to protect the existing vegetation. We strongly believe that that existing vegetation largely will be protected as it is. The township clerk has me talking very fast, so I slow down. So, but yet the vegetation should likely be preserved. There will be a full site plan application required of any application on this property. So you have issues like the existing vegetation as well as the fencing and issues such as the site plan conditions relative to the commercial development. Those things can all be discussed and debated at the time of site plan review. As this board may know, there is an application process and there's a requirement to come and show the design. The board has the ability to review and scrutinize that design based upon good design principles. What we also provide in the ordinances is references to design standards. So those design standards help to mitigate any of the impacts to adjacent residential properties.
Thank you.
Nick Komiak, Lake Hiawatha. Is there any new land development in any of these ordinances, like the taking of a wooded area or anything? Is there any, I believe they're called buy downs, which in my interpretation would be, is there any luxury that are unoccupied that can be converted into affordables? And my last one would be, how much of the regional needs is Parsippany meeting as its own designated in comparison to the region? Or how much of the regional needs is Parsippany taking up?
Council President?
Go ahead.
Just to address those questions. Any new land being taken up or currently vegetated areas, not to my knowledge, other than existing areas where there was prior development, and now what's being proposed is the rehabilitation or redevelopment with a small r of those properties. Buy downs, luxury units, I'm not quite sure I understood your question, but we do have a market to affordable program as part of the overall plan. If you recall, when we presented the overall plan, we have 35 units that we seek to buy down within the existing community And what we're proposing to do, and it's fostered through the spending plan, is a plan to purchase units, or not purchase units, but to buy down the cost of the rental of those units in order for them to meet affordable requirements. There will be bedroom types, bedroom distributions, but as far as luxury is concerned, I guess I'm a little concerned, I have some questions regarding what you intended by luxury. Regional need, we're addressing 845 units of the regional need. I think that's very, very significant. It was 314 units, as you recall, but now it's 845 units is being addressed directly, as well as unmet need is also being addressed through the various overlay ordinances that are proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, only because
Yes.
he's asked for clarification. Mr.
I was gonna
Etznikis
say,
has
unless
asked.
you want to talk to him individually.
Okay.
All right. Nick, he'll
Yeah.
answer your questions individually.
Yeah, you can talk to him after the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else. Motion to close the public hearing for ordinances 2019:46 through 2019:63.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
The floor is closed.
So I'll just note for the record, we have the who's who of the land use bar here, along with a number of well-respected planners, none of whom have comments. This must be a first, right?
Whereas the above ordinances were read in title on second reading and hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinances be passed on final reading and that notices of final passage of said ordinances be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolutions 2019:46 through 2019:63.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I want to thank the clerk for his speed reading ability, and I want again to extend my thanks to the township planning staff and the special counsel on affordable housing matters for a job well done.
Thank you, Mr. Lott.
Mr. Lott will be appearing in court the rest of the week, and over the weekend, he will be at the Comedy Cellar. 2 nights, 2 shows on Saturday, 1 on Sunday.
It was either
okay?
this mayor or comedy, and I chose law.
There you go.
Mr. DePiero, resolutions, non-consent.
Resolution 2019-186. Resolution authorizing amicus participation and funding assistance in the appeal of Verizon New Jersey, Inc. versus Hopewell Borough. Motion to approve the resolution above.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
R 2019-187, resolution of the Township Council adopting a rehabilitation program manual. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Resolution 2019-188, resolution of the Township Council adopting an affirmative marketing plan. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Resolution 2019-189. Resolution adopting an affordable housing spending plan. Motion to approve the resolution above.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion
R
passes.
2019-90, resolution of the Township Council endorsing the Housing Element and Fair Share Plan. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Resolution 2019-191, resolution of the Township Council of intent to appropriate funds or bonds for affordable housing in the event of a funding shortfall. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Resolution 2019-192. Resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hill supporting, participating in the Sustainable Jersey Municipal Certification. Motion to approve the resolution above.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask all council members to look at the consent agenda, see if there's any questions, concerns. Hear none. Mr. DePiero, approval of payroll.
Approval of payroll and bills list. CFO Ancucci recommends authorization for payment. Item 1, authorize payment of the 10/4/19 regular and miscellaneous payroll estimated at $1,700,000 each. Item 2, payment of bills from voucher list of 9/17/19 through 10/3/19 totaling $2,269,069.96. Motion to approve the authorization for payment above.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
I have to point this out again.
Go for it.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you were going to point it out, but we'll go with that. Okay.
Well, you know,
yes, you were going to speak about the concerns. We are, just so we can put that on the record for Ms. McCarthy, the CFO and I will meet this week to address those concerns with regards to the bills list and the process that you had brought up a couple weeks back at the last meeting. We do apologize that we did not have a report for you, but we will for the next meeting. So
So I said yes.
You said yes?
I
okay. Ms. McCarthy. Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ms. Peterson?
Executive session resolution. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss attorney-client privilege, Carriffy litigation, and whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting. Motion to adjourn into closed session.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Okay, we'll adjourn to closed session for the public. There is no action that will be taken after the meeting. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to reconvene by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call. Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy? Ms.
Yes.
McCarthy? Ms.
Yes.
Peterson?
Oh, yes.
We are now in public. We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
No.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
We're adjourned. Have a good night.